I've always had a quiet life. One of those peaceful, leave me alone kind of lives. For me, it was living in my grandfather's cabin, a modest structure built in the 1920s, tucked away on 2.5 acres in Millbrook Falls, Oregon. The mornings were a ritual, coffee brewing on the wood stove, that smell of cedar, smoke curling through the beams. Ranger, my golden retriever, would stretch out across the porch boards that creaked under his weight, and I'd stand there just listening. The only sound besides the creak of wood was the creek babbling gently along the eastern boundary. But then came Vivian Thorne. I guess I should have known something was coming when the neighborhood started changing. In 1999, some developer bought the adjacent farmland and slapped up Brookstone Meadows. Over 200 cookie-cutter houses painted 3 shades of beige, each one sitting like an army of clone homes. I thought I'd be fine, though. I figured we'd coexist. I wasn't running a circus over here. Just me, my cabin, and my land. Enter Vivian. I'll never forget the first time I met her. 58 years old, dressed like she was auditioning for a role in some HOA dystopian movie. She drove around in a white BMW with vanity plates that read Hein. And let me tell you, it wasn't humility. She carried a clipboard like it was her weapon of choice, measuring grass heights with a ruler, writing people up for having the wrong shade of green on their mailboxes. I swear, she was the kind of person who took pride in the smallest of tyrannies. And I, being the proud land surveyor I am, started noticing how she would show up every time a delivery truck pulled into my driveway. FedEx, propane, groceries, they all had to deal with her first. And it wasn't just a quick wave. She'd interrogate every driver, demanding delivery confirmations, all while I stood there, watching her antics unfold like a bad soap opera. But that was just the start. Then came the real attack. A complaint to county code enforcement, saying my little cabin violated residential zoning codes. Me, a man living in a cabin that's been in my family since the 1920s. $3,200 in lawyer fees later, I proved it was all nonsense. The cabin was grandfathered in, completely legal. But that didn't stop Vivian. No, she wasn't done yet. Instead of admitting defeat, she escalated. Now, my chainsaw was too loud. My parking? A problem. My guests? A disturbance. She was out to get me, and I knew it, but I was ready for her. I'd spent decades collecting old property records, deeds from the 1880s, old railroad grants, federal land contracts. You name it. I didn't just know land boundaries. I owned them. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter, a demand for $47,000, dating back 25 years. Vivian had come for my property in a way I hadn't expected. She claimed that my cabin had been freeloading off their community for too long and that I owed the HOA fees. But the kicker? These fees predated my ownership of the land. I laughed. She had no idea who she was dealing with. 3 weeks later, Vivian was back, swinging harder than before. She hired a law firm, Peton and Associates, and this time they weren't playing nice. They sent a process server to my door one Tuesday morning. I was feeding Ranger when this guy in a wrinkled suit handed me an envelope thick enough to stop a bullet. Inside, more threats. Claims of HOA jurisdiction over my property. Legal jargon designed to make me panic. But I wasn't panicking. Not even a little. I drove straight to the county courthouse. It smelled like old paper and floor cleaner, the kind of smell that took me back to my surveying days. Dolores Henning, the county clerk, wheeled out boxes of documents related to Brookstone Meadows, and after a bit of digging, I found it. The smoking gun. Vivian was wrong. Not just about my property boundaries, but about everything. The original Brookstone Meadows HOA filing had a clause that specifically excluded my land to protect the creek system. Federal environmental law had made my land untouchable. The irony? Vivian wasn't just wrong about the HOA's jurisdiction. She was about to violate federal law, and I had the proof to take her down. I called her up and hit her with it. I told her about the environmental protections. She didn't believe me, said her lawyers had done their research. But I didn't back down. I had federal documentation, and she didn't. But that wasn't the end. Vivian's desperation led her to organize an emergency HOA meeting. She came with her PowerPoint slides, all showing photos of my cabin, charts about road maintenance costs, and, of course, her accusations of freeloading. The room was filled with people, and she presented her case with the confidence of someone who thought she was about to win. But she made a fatal mistake. She handed out copies of Peton and Associates' demand letter, and that's when I struck. I stood up, walked over, and placed my 1887 railroad deed on the table for everyone to see. The room fell silent. This land, I said, was granted federal protection 112 years before your HOA existed. Then Dr. Elena Vasquez, a historian from the Oregon State Archives, stepped forward with federal documentation confirming what I had said. Vivian's face drained of color, and that was when the dominoes started to fall. Her whole case unraveled. The more she fought, the deeper the hole she dug. The community started to turn. Janet Morse, the HOA treasurer, secretly met with me and admitted that Vivian had lied to the board about the legal facts. Neighbors started demanding answers. But Vivian's desperation reached new heights when she tried to bribe me, offering me $5,000 to vote in favor of a special assessment to fund her legal fight. That was it. She had crossed the line from harassment into full-scale felony territory. I had all the evidence I needed, and I wasn't stopping now. The final blow came when I received a call from the EPA. They had been investigating HOA overreach involving protected properties, and my case fit a pattern they'd been tracking across 3 states. Vivian's harassment had attracted federal attention, and now she was facing criminal charges. The final confrontation came when Vivian filed a quiet title action, claiming the HOA had discovered adverse possession rights over my land. But it was all a lie. She'd made fraudulent claims, and the media was eating it up. When Vivian stood in front of the camera, declaring how I'd been freeloading, I calmly corrected her. I have proof of my property's federal protection. It was game over. The community saw Vivian for who she really was, a bully who had manipulated the system for her own gain. The board voted to remove her, and the EPA moved in to handle the criminal charges. It was the sweetest taste of justice I'd ever had. And while Vivian's career and reputation were destroyed, my quiet retirement had been transformed into something more important, a chance to protect others from bullies like her. Now, I teach people how to research their property's history, how to fight back when an HOA tries to take what isn't theirs. I've helped dozens of families avoid the same fate I went through, and I'm proud of that. But here's the thing, you don't have to be a lawyer or a politician to fight back. All you need is the truth and the patience to stand your ground. What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. And remember, no matter how small or isolated your property might seem, it's your home and it's protected.